You are listening to the Love and Money podcast, and today I'm going to talk to you about the new Alzheimer's drug called Aducanumab. Aducanumab. That is the new Alzheimer's drug released. So there is big controversy going on about this drug. Three FDA people have resigned from their position because they do not agree with this drug being released. According to uh, there's a doctor by the name of Dr. Aaron Kesselhelm, who's the professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. And he recently resigned, saying that there is no evidence that this drug works. Now, what does it have to do with love and money? Because my topics are surrounding love and money. Love, first of all, you love your family members that may be affected by this disease. Money, you're going to be charged money for a drug that they have no evidence that it works. So, hence, I'm talking about Alzheimer's disease and the new drug that was released. So, this drug costs $56,000 a year. There is no good evidence that this works. According to the doctor who recently resigned, there are three people in the FDA who resigned who disagree with the release of this drug. Besides the fact that there's no evidence that the drug works, it has some significant side effects. Those side effects being brain swelling and brain bleeding. So it requires a lot of MRIs in between receiving the medications, which is an additional cost. So this is what's going on with the new drug that is being released. It's released by a pharmaceutical company by the name of Biogen. It's expected to be released within the next 2 weeks, and it will go out to 900 different sites all over the country. It will primarily go to memory clinics, and patients who are suffering with dementia will be treated with this drug. According to the FDA, this is the first Alzheimer's drug that has been released in 18 years. There are only five other medications on the market available now that are uh, for Alzheimer's. This is what is going on, and so how this drug is taken is by infusion, and it's a monthly infusion. So you would come in, more than likely sit in the infusion chair, and you would be infused with this drug once a month. And so that's how this drug works. One of the biomarkers that a person has Alzheimer's is the presence of amyloid. And what amyloid is, it is an aggregate of proteins in the brain. And so they can actually see this aggregate when they stain it with a red dye. They'll see little clumps of proteins that come together, that aggregate together. And that is a biomarker that the person has Alzheimer's. When they are creating drugs for Alzheimer's, the purpose is to reduce the amount of amyloid in the brain, hence slowing down cognitive decline. So there's no evidence that this drug slows down cognitive decline. There's no evidence that it helps memory. There's no evidence that it reduces amyloid in the brain. So, as I stated before, three people from the FDA, they resigned. Um, One of the main speakers, Dr. Aaron Hesselhelm, professor of medicine at Harvard, um, he left. He totally disagrees what is going on. Um, Nevertheless, they were still able to push it through. and it's going to be on the market. So when you see it, just recognize it and recognize what is going on with this particular drug, that they were able to get a drug out, that there's no scientific evidence whatsoever that the drug works. They plan to ship it out within the next 2 weeks, and it'll be here in 900 different places all over the country. So, this is what is happening right now at the FDA. Um, Actually, they sit around and they vote on what drugs they're going to release and what drugs they're not going to release based on clinical trials and based on scientific research and evidence. And everything that they did as far as clinical trials and research pointed to the fact that there's no evidence that this drug works. Yet and still, they were still able to push it through. And so that you're going to have a drug on the market that doesn't even work, that costs $56,000 a year, that causes brain swelling and brain bleeding, and that requires an additional cost of MRIs just to make sure that bleeding is not happening, that swelling is not happening. So, with the MRIs, the magnetic resonance imaging, they are able to look at the brain to see if there's swelling or bleeding. And so that's going to be an additional cost, a drug that requires MRIs. And note that some of the patients that get this medication, I'm quite sure they're not going to be getting MRIs because they can barely afford the medication. How are they going to afford to get an MRI? So just so you can be aware of what's going on. This is the Love and Money podcast. If you like this podcast, please share it with one other person, and please hit the like and subscribe button on your way out. Thank you for listening.